Welcome everyone. My name is Scott Mizek, CAD Technology Center. I'm an application engineer here. I've been with the company for 6 years now. Today's webinar, we're going to be looking at Infraworks. We're going to be looking at Infraworks for site design. Infraworks, you may know it as, hey, let's build some roads, let's build some corridors in there, but we can also use Infraworks for just site design. So, site design in Infraworks. As I stated in the description, Infraworks is not just for roads, but site design as well. This session will cover the creation of a base model with Model Builder, and then we'll look at adding coverages, land use, to grade the site. So the existing conditions, we're going to make manipulations to that, and then we're going to bring in some 3D models. We're going to bring in some FBXs, maybe a 3DS model. We'll look at stuff that's in the library. Currently, we'll look at stuff where we can get it out to an outside source. And then finally, we'll do some landscaping for some aesthetic reasons. So we'll bring in some trees, maybe some shrubs, maybe drop in other pieces of landscape information in there. So today, again, we'll be looking at building a model using Model Builder. We'll comprehend what types of 3D models can be brought in from an FBX to a Revit model. And then we'll understand how to bring in additional information like city furniture for landscaping. So Model Builder. Real quickly, for any of you that haven't used Infraworks, we have Model Builder. First thing we want to do is we'll give it a location. So if we were looking for Bloomington, Minnesota, I can click that and it'll automatically zoom me into Bloomington, Minnesota. I can use the scroll wheel just to find the information. And then I have ways of picking the area. The first one is basically what you see on the screen is what you get. Second one is I can put a rectangle around the area of interest. So maybe I just want this portion of the map via shapefile or an irregular shaped polygon are the last two. So maybe my area goes at an angle of 45 degrees and I don't want the rectangle to be true north, true east. I can put something in at an angle. Because one of the limitations of Model Builder is you are only allowed 200 square kilometers in here. And if you can see my entire map right in here, I am pushing almost 1,200 square kilometers. So I'm about 6 times too big. But if I chose a rectangle area here and just zoomed in on just the Bloomington area, I would be at my 200 square kilometers or less. Next thing we need to know is where is our data coming from? Roads is coming from openstreetmaps.org. Buildings is coming from openstreetmap.org. Imagery, so our background, is coming from Bing Maps. And then our elevations is coming from the USGS website. So the USGS website, with the fact that it is a national server provider, our information is going to be basically on a national scale. So is it going to be 100% accurate? No. If we need more accurate existing conditions, go to the county, go to the city, have a surveyor actually go out and topo it, and then bring it in that way. But from a start, it's a good starting point. Fourthly, we put a name for our model in there. I've created one called Webinar that I have already brought in. And then what default group do you want it to bring in? The model I brought in, it literally took about 45 seconds for it to create. So while when you create your model, it may take a few minutes. A typical model for site design, I haven't seen it take any longer than 3 minutes on any of the models that I have built. But my models are pretty small. What 3D models can I bring in? If I say insert 3D model, I can bring in a 3DS, so something from 3ds Max. I can bring in a DAE model, which is a Collada model. I can bring in something called a DXF, an FBX, and an OBJ. So those handfuls there. I can also bring in an IMX file. and an AutoCAD Revit model. So I can bring in that RFA. The only requirement to bring in a Revit model is that you must have Revit on your machine. I unfortunately forgot to put Revit on my machine, so I cannot bring in a Revit model, but I can bring in an FBX of that Revit model. But with Revit, it is a cloud-based, so it will take your Revit model and it will send it up to the cloud, and it will do some post-processing on it and then bring it back into your Infraworks model. So you will need an internet connection, and you will need Revit on your machine to bring in a Revit model. And then the DGN 3D models right in there, also right there. When it comes to city furniture, we have a handful of categories in there. We have some bridge components, buildings, generic city furniture. It breaks down into more categories: construction, energy, highway, points of interest, people, planes, ships, railways, shapes, traffic barriers, vegetation, vehicles. So if I went into the vehicles, or sorry, the people, there are some handful of predefined models out there. If I look at city furniture, I see things like mailboxes, recycling container, bus stop signs, fire hydrants, small things that you might see around a downtown area I can drop in. And if you look at vegetation, one of the key features in there, I have a handful types of trees in there. I have some shrubs, I have some bushes, and I have a whole bunch of other trees. If the out-of-the-box city furniture stuff doesn't always work for you, you can always go out to Trimble Warehouse and do a search. I did a search right here for trees right there, and they populated a bunch of trees in here that I can export out the Collada model or the SketchUp model, convert the SketchUp model into a Collada model, a DAE model, and then I could actually just bring it into Infraworks without having to use any of the out-of-the-box library. So let's go ahead and jump right into the demo here. So let me go in there. Again, I created a model using Model Builder. It took about 45 seconds, give or take, to open. So I have a site, and it's Bloomington. We have Mall of America right here. We have MSP Airport right there. Well, I want to come in and I want to design, I want to grade out this site, and I want to put in a building with a parking lot. So first thing I like to do is I like to go and use land areas. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just put manicured grass for the material. And the thing I like about land areas is I can put it down the middle of my road, and the road will take precedence, so the road will always be right on top. So I can just quickly come in, define an area of what I'm going to be designing, and the road always falls on top. So right now there is what my existing condition looks like, but with a manicured grass. So now I can actually see my site. Well, I want to come in and I want to do some manipulation to this, so maybe I want to put a little berm in there. What I can do is I can actually put another land area just on the inside, and I'm going to raise it up ever so slightly. Let it zoom in. Now I have a small berm inside the overall area. Let's go ahead and let's bring in a parking lot. So I'm going to make another land use area, or land area, but this time I'm actually going to use a different material, and I'm going to use dark concrete for like a parking area. And I'm going to say that this is going to come in right about in here. Finish that up, double click. Again, the road will always stay on top. Was it a perfect entrance in there? No. Can I break this up? If I turn this into a component road, I could break that away, but we're not going to worry about that for now. The best thing I like about the land areas is I don't have to just stay with typical shapes or, hey, let's just grade out at a 3-to-1 all the way around. What I can do is I can come in and I can raise the back two ends up, lower the bottom two, and then I can come in and add what's called manual grading to it, and we'll take a peek at this once it's in. And what it did was it said that, hey, anywhere that you're in a fill situation, come out at a 3-to-1 and put in manicured grass. But hey, anywhere that you're in a cut situation, we want you to come in at a 0.1-to-1 and actually add a rock face. So doing silly things, I actually went the wrong way, and I should have had the bring that back in so I daylight normal, but now on the back end, I'll have the cut situation. So it recognized cut to fill, fill to cut, and it automatically made that transition. So let me take a quick peek at that grading. So if I come in, go into my style palette, and I come down to grading, I will see the one that I use, and it's the rock wall. Now I'm going to edit this. And what it says is grading method fixed slope. Cut slope is at a 0.1-to-1, and it is using the material Riverstone. The fill slope is at a 3-to-1, and its fill material is manicured grass. I do have the ability to manipulate these any way I want. Maybe I want it 2-to-1. Maybe I want it at 0.5-to-1. But I can come in and I can define any material in here under land cover for a cut situation, for a fill situation. I can also, instead of just using land cover, I can actually use basic colors. So maybe I just want to generically show, hey, this is going to be a fill situation, this is going to be a cut situation. I can come in and grade it. So parking areas, here, maybe I want to add all fill situations will be medium gray. Whoops, I did the wrong one. Oh, we'll get the point there. So I can come in and build that. So if my existing conditions is going to be built into a hillside, I had that capability of making those adjustments. And that's what's nice, again, about the land areas, is that each land area is linked to the other ones. So as I raise or lower the second one, the first one updates to it. So now I have a better berm in here. Maybe I want to put a third one in there so that it is just a berm around the inside edge or around the perimeter. And then I put my parking lot in. So I'm going to bring my parking lot back up, get rid of that retaining wall inside. Oops, let's raise those two up also. And we'll get that one. We'll bring the whole thing up. So now I see, again, my grading interacts with all the other ones, but the last one in holds true. So if I raise this middle one up, this inside one is going to hold, so it'll actually build a wall up in there. So, and I can very easily, while I just did the four corners, I could come in and add a vertex there, and there. So now maybe if this was the parking lot, or let's actually do it to the parking lot, add a vertex here, add a vertex there, over at this end, and over here. Now this grading that I have here, this land area that I have, I can actually put crowns and swales in my parking lot just by going through and updating all the vertices. So maybe I'm going to put one right in the middle. So maybe I have everything. This is a crown, and it's all going to slope down into here to a low point, and maybe the two outside corners are going to be a high point, so everything will slope. So if I were to be looking at adding underground utilities, I could put a catch basin here, and I could put a catch basin here. So by adding the vertices, I do have that capability. Let's go ahead and add our building. So I'm going to go to data sources, bring that over to the correct screen, and I'm going to add a 3D model. And I'm going to go to my desktop because I put one on my desktop, and I'm going to bring this one in. First thing I need to do is configure it. It's going to ask what type. It's city furniture, and then interactive placing. And I'm going to put it right about here. Obviously, I'm going to have to adjust my parking lot, close and refresh. And that quickly, I brought in a FBX model of a Revit model. Like again, if I had Revit on my machine, I could have brought in that Revit model and made adjustments to it. So I'm going to move that grip down, that grip down, that grip down, and now my building is right next to the parking lot. Cosmetically, I can come in and I can add more information. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add some city furniture. And I'm going to go and say tree. Vegetation, let's bring in find that red maple. And I just brought in a simple tree using city furniture. What I could have also have done is I could have actually gone in and created a row of trees, picked that same red tree, and I could have actually come through and clicked here to here to here, whoops, and put in a whole clump of trees. And now repeat that process. It remembered the tree that I used, so I'm going to come to here. Now I have a bunch of trees lining my parking lot. Other thing I can do is I can come in and I can drop in terms of the city furniture, is I can drop in cars. So I'm going to do a Control C, Control V, and drop that tree in. Drop it in there, there. I find using the copy paste works really good, because then what I can do is I can just go into my style palette and go to 3D models. Oops, go up, 3D models, go to vehicles, and change that tree into an SUV. And you always have to have a police car. So I'm using some of the defaults city furniture for my vehicles. Now that I have some cars parked in there, I can obviously go ahead and make it look like a parking lot, putting them properly spaced. There are ways, oops, there are ways to actually create a material. So this will actually look like a parking lot. It will actually put striping in there. If, again, the stuff that you don't want or the stuff that you want isn't in here, I can always come out and go out to the internet and go to Infraworks 3D warehouse and type in anything that I want. So I'm going to type in a red maple. And here is a tree that is in a SketchUp model. I can go ahead and download it. I accept. And it downloaded that SketchUp model. I then go into SketchUp Make. I save it out. I export it out as a collada model. And then in my data sources, I come in, insert a 3D model, and I choose the DAE model. So bringing in information into your site to make it look better does a good job. Having the ability to actually grade my site, let me close out of some of these dialog boxes, by using land areas and then layering the land area on top of a land area allows me to, the first one was more of just a buffer of, hey, my area is now all going to be green. My second one right here, in here, created the berm, and by selecting on it, I was able to add some vertices in there. And then again, if I wanted to, I could have put another one inside it to actually make it look like a true berm in there. And then my parking lot would have been flush on top of all the other information. And it's just go in and click and adjust each vertice. I can adjust each one individually, or I can hit the gizmo and raise or lower everything. So that quickly I lowered that one, which made my parking lot a little bit higher. Coverage area, draw. If I did a coverage area right through here, I don't remember which one I picked, so I'll be surprised when it completes. Again, just like land areas, the coverage, the roads will be right on top of each other. So I have a coverage area which it maintains the terrain, so you can see that it didn't make it flat all the way across, it kept that. But if I used a coverage area and then I put a land area in between, so I'm going to go dark concrete and click in here to here to here. It puts it in, but the only problem is I can't see it. I can make that minor adjustment right there, but if I pick on this, all I get is the coverage area. I don't have the ability to now pick that land area if it's contained completely inside that coverage area. So the only way I can manipulate it is by deleting out the coverage area and then getting to it. So while land areas work really well, stacking on top of each other, a land area and a coverage area, they don't play so nice. So to wrap things up, I just want to look at some of the information about this. So this parking lot used the concrete in there. If I needed to make changes, I can click on that, more styles, and maybe let's use something that definitely will stand out. Now, that is just using that wonderful material in there. So you have two places to go when you're talking about land areas, is the manual style. That is basically the flat spot. That is what is contained inside your vertices, inside the border. Then you have the manual grading that we have, and that's where you'll come to the grading, and you can say, hey, grade everything at a 3:1, put rock in there, stone cut. So if I say grade 3:1 instead, now all my outside is a 3:1, but I still have this in here. So two places to go for your land areas, material, grading, to make everything work the way you want. And when you're done, if you have Civil 3D, you could bring this directly into Civil 3D, and I could start designing my pipe networks. I could start doing other information. If I don't have Civil and I need to bring it to somewhere else, I still have the ability to export out an IMX file. So with that, that pretty much wraps up site grading for Infraworks. I'm going to quickly jump back in there. Questions? There is one question that popped up, and that is, do you have any tips for inserting point clouds, i.e. making them show up? Yes and no. You do have the ability to bring in a point cloud directly. So if I go into my data sources, I do have the ability to insert a point cloud right there. The problem that I have is the point clouds that I have were done from I don't want to call it a handheld scanner. It was a scanner used for mainly architectural, so it was only good for like 60 feet. Well, we were shooting it for 100 feet, so I had a lot of voids in there. But I will do my best. I'll see if I can bring one in. If I can remember where I have them stored. I just don't remember where I had them at, so. But no, they should come in. The problem you have with Infraworks is once they're in, you can't really move them. You can make minor adjustments to it, but when you bring in a point cloud, make sure that they were geo-referenced before you bring them in, and then they should show up in the right northing, easting, and elevation. There were some new features in the 2018.1, which allows you to do data extraction from a point cloud.